Hello and welcome to episode number 144 of the Board Game Barrage podcast. Episode 144. 144 is a dozen, otherwise known as a gross. That's what I was going to say.
I didn't mean to completely jump your orbit there.
Great job, Neelan. With me as always are Kellen the Red Tank.
Hello.
Neelan the Orange Tank.
Hi.
And look who's here. It's Christina the Blue Tank.
Hello. I just want to say we've already laughed a lot, so that's what I bring in case that was ever in question.
Before we start the show, big news. If you're listening to the show on the day it's released or soon thereafter, this weekend, so October 17th specifically, Saturday, we are all going to be at Aw Shucks.
Oh, shucks.
If you're not aware of this is the Shut Up and Sit Down virtual convention that they're putting on. There's going to be a lot of great guests, and you can go to their Twitter at Shucks Show, that's SHUXSHOW, to see the schedule. But we will be there on Saturday playing Billionaire Banshee and, of course, Neelan, tell him.
Hundreds of horses.
That is right. So Hundreds of Horses is going to be 2:30 Pacific, 5:30 Eastern, and Billionaire Banshee is going to be at 4:30 Pacific, 7:30 Eastern.
Yeah, we'll be splitting up, so two of us will be on Hundreds of Horses, two of us will be on Billionaire Banshee, so please check out both. I think they're both going to be a lot of fun to watch.
Yep, absolutely. On today's episode, the three good tanks have conspired against the mean businessman Kellen Red Tank. We have thrown away all his games. We have burned them up in a pyre. And we've locked him in a room, given him a laptop that only links to Game Nerd's website, and put $100 in his account and said, rebuild your collection. So in this series that I'm going to propose we call 0 to 100, Kellen has $100 to build a collection from scratch.
Like my house burned down, and all I care about is buying new board games?
No, just your games. Your games. We took your game.
Oh, it was a selective fire.
Yeah.
Like a controlled burn.
Right.
Mark snuck in the night.
That's right.
Stole them all. Maybe they didn't even burn. They could be in the ocean. They could be
up for trade right now.
They could be up for trade. They're probably up for trade. Which ones are you going to trade back for?
That's right. So that is what we're doing. We're giving Kellen $100 to rebuild the collection, and we are going to mostly make fun of him, probably, but we'll see. Maybe he'll make a couple good choices. But before we do that, we're going to be talking about the games that we played. Christina's going to start us off with 5211. I'll go up next with the sequel to Marco Polo II, and Neelan is going to wrap it up with his report on Cóatl. So, Christina, why don't you start us off with 5211?
5211, and specifically the Azul retheme, is a game that we have all played recently quite a bit, and we've been enjoying quite a bit, not to give too much away. But this is a round-based card game in which it's very easy to remember, actually, because players get dealt 5 cards, and then in the first round they play 2 cards. So we're at 5-2, just as a reminder. And then in the second round, they play 1 card, 5-2-1. And then in the last round, they play 1 card, 5-2-1-1. So it's super easy to remember. You don't have to keep checking Command F like Neelan and I are apt to do. So you are trying to tile the walls of the castle, is what I've learned. And revisiting the rule book. You know, I think I realized why they don't let me teach the rules to games ever. I think it's because I always want to tell the story of, like, the king said this, and that's why this rule is like that, and it would really convolute the rules explanation. And so I think that's the discovery that I made today. That's why I am not allowed to teach the rules. Because that's what I do when I'm explaining the game, too. I just want to tell you about the king. Okay, so.
I think you're also revealing why you're not allowed in every episode of the podcast.
I think that is false because people love hearing about the king and the flavor text. We have objectively discovered that flavor text is good, Kellen is bad. So if you want to fact check that, go back to episode 1.
Don't say it. Don't say it.
Okay, where was I? So first round, you draw 5 cards and you play 2, and you're looking at everybody else's cards because you want to be part of the group that is the largest, because that is the only group of cards that will score. But because the king doesn't like his castle to be too gaudy with the colors, you can't exceed a certain amount based on player count of one specific color. So after you play the first 2 cards, you're going to look around and you're going to want to see what color is in the majority. because that is the color that is currently the contender to win. And what it means for a color to win is that it's the only one that's going to score. So the cards are numbered from 1 to 6, I think.
Yes.
Okay, it doesn't matter. The cards are numbered from 1 to something.
It is 1 to 6. It's 1 to 6.
Okay, 1 to 6. And you get the amount of points that is the number of the card. So if you have a 6 card, you really want to make sure you're playing it when that suit is going to win. So the exception to the majority color winning are the roosters, which Mark pointed out, we don't know why the king likes roosters so much. So if there are exactly a certain amount of roosters, which again is dependent on player count, so in a 4-player game, if there are exactly 6 roosters, then doesn't matter what color is the majority, roosters score. Roosters are only worth 1 point each. So you could be building up to get green to win and you have your 6 green out. And then if Mark plays the 6th rooster, doesn't matter. You might have 1 rooster in your hand and then you get 1 point. So that's where you can do a lot of, messing people up.
So the end of the round, right? The first check is, are there 6 roosters in a 4-player game? If no, then great. Which color has the majority? But that majority can also bust if it goes too high. And so in which case, the next majority would score points. So there's a constant battle where you're looking around at each point in a round, and it's fun because the first hand is 2 cards, and then 1, and then 1. So it's a little bit of play what you think you're going to do, and then adapt with the rest of the cards in your hand. You're also constantly redrawing cards, and you also keep the cards in your hand from round to round to allow you a little bit more flexibility and strategy in what you may do in a subsequent round. You may get a hand of all one color, for example, to try to be the guy that makes blue score this round.
Yep, and that basically covers all of the rules for 5211. What did you guys think of 5211, the Azul version?
I really, really liked it. I actually spoke about this game on the Boards Alive podcast, so you can check out my inferior explanation on that podcast. But I really, really liked it. It reminds me of a more gamery version of Six Nimmt. It feels a little bit like that, where there's like the simultaneous selection, a little bit of push your luck, but it feels like there's maybe a little less luck. And it's not a 1-for-1 comparison, but it has that feeling to me. And also a game that moves really, really fast. You go through the deck of cards once and you're done. I really, really enjoyed it.
I guess we all thought this at the time. It's also pretty strongly reminiscent of Fuji Flush in that there's a little bit of, especially after that first 2 cards, you're looking around the table and being like, Kellen, we're doing this. We're pushing blue. This is us. We're going to go in on this. And you hope that no one comes in to spoil the fun later in the round, which is always fun to have those little temporary alliances, those little temporary enemies pop up in a given round as you're sort of hoping either, can we push this to 6 roosters exactly? There's a little bit of double think in whether it's going to be you that will push it over or get it exactly to 6. Yeah, there's lots of little fun moments in a game that plays exceedingly fast, both in one round and cycle through the entire deck, which is a full game.
It is delightfully weird, in my opinion. I think that you can play this as sort of just a light filler at the very beginning of a board game night, or you can really get into the negotiation of it. You can get in near the end of a round, and Mark has 3 or 4 roosters, and you put out your last card and you say, Mark, this is a rooster. Don't be an idiot. I'm playing a rooster, and you may or may not have a rooster there, and Mark may or may not call your bluff, and the rounds resolve and you keep moving. I think, like Six Nimmt and like Fuji Flush, you can't explicitly be mad at yourself if you lose, because you can have just a bad string of luck. But there is something interesting here. And once you're done with the rules and you're playing, you have this little light bulb moment. It's like, why hasn't this game already existed? And it's cleaner and more interesting than it should be given the rule set. So a huge win for me. I really like this one. It went into my immediate to-be-rethemed pile. Not that I don't love, the mythos and the backstory of Azul and Azul Sintra and Azul Stained Glass and Azul Underwater Reef Edition and then the Azul B Edition that's coming out pretty soon. But for me, I think there's Pokemon in the future here.
You're making fun, but we actually have loved all of the Azul games that we've played.
Oh, yeah. I mean, it's just not... He loves roosters, right? 6 of them.
Only 6 roosters.
Not 5. Not 7. I get it. Too many roosters, but why not, 5?
Why not 5? Yeah.
Well, you have to have an even number for mating purposes.
Okay, so why does he want 5 when there's 3 people in his castle? What is the ratio of people to roosters?
So they each get a breeding pair, obviously.
Excuse me?
Well, that's the 6. It's 3 pairs of 2.
Well, no, but he's saying, what if there's 3 players? Then there's only 5 roosters.
No, Neelan just said they're breeding with the roosters.
Wait, the human?
Not say that.
Neelan.
What do you mean?
That's
To
not
be
the kind of show.
100% clear, I did not imply that anyone was breeding with these roosters.
I think you did.
You brought that all on your own.
No, I don't know about that.
Gosh. Oof. Yeah, now you know what it's like. So that is 5211, the Azul Special Edition.
All right. Speaking of breeding roosters, I played Marco Polo II, the sequel to Marco Polo. There are no roosters in it for people who are anticipating that. I was just joking. Marco Polo II is the sequel
There
to
could be, like instead of camels,
There could be, yeah.
right?
I think they're saving that for Marco Polo 3.
Marco Polio?
Oh, nice. All you need is one L. That's excellent.
That's
Excellent work.
good. Yeah, that was
very
good.
Nope.
Kellen.
Speaking of story,
What do you... That...
That was impressive. I
That was
gotta be
impressive.
mean.
This is my every episode of the podcast.
Neelan's life. So, speaking of story, I'm going to give you a little bit of story about Marco Polo 2.
Oh, yay.
That's right. In Marco Polo 1, you were traveling to Beijing to meet the Khan and exchange goods and do all that kind of stuff. In Marco Polo 2, you are working for the Khan, but you're leaving Beijing. So this game, you start in Beijing. How about that?
Different.
Different.
It makes sense.
It makes sense. That's right. Thematically. It all
You gotta
flows
get
together.
back home.
Well, I think you're traveling. I don't think you're going to any certain place. But sure. Yeah, you can say wherever you want end up as home. Sure. Anyhow, Marco Polo 2 plays very similarly to Marco Polo 1. I won't go over exactly how the game plays, but I'll talk about some of the differences between 1 and 2. I should say that going into Marco Polo 2, I was a little concerned because I'd heard mixed things, especially that Marco Polo 2 was a much looser game than Marco Polo 1, which isn't saying necessarily a lot because Marco Polo 1, for me, is a game that I think of when I think of tight games. Marco Polo 1 is the first one really that springs to mind. So I was hesitant, but a friend, Dean, got a copy, so I was eager to give it a spin. First, I'll go over the similarities really quick. It plays in a lot of ways just like Marco Polo, the original. The base mechanism is still there. You've got a number of dice, you're rolling them, you're placing them on worker placement spots. In a lot of spots, the strength of the action you take corresponds to the number of pips that you place. So in some spots, if you place a 2 pip down, you'll be able to either move 2 spaces or do an action twice, something like that. Same rules for if you want to take an action that somebody's already taken, you place your dice on top of theirs, and then you pay whatever the lowest pip is visible. So if Kellen had taken a spot and I placed 2 dice on top, I could take that action, but I have to pay 2 gold. There's contracts, there's resources, although they've added a new resource, Jade. So that's one of the differences. There's now a new resource that acts as a wild for money and for camels. So not a across-the-board wild, but a wild for those 2 things, but is more useful in the resource management, resource conversion game. Jade can be converted into other resources. And speaking of other resources, the market from Marco Polo is completely gone. The way that you get goods in Marco Polo 2 is there are spots at the bottom of the board, and if you go there, you have one of 2 choices. You can get a little bit of resources and some jade, or you can convert jade to a lot of resources. But the resources that you get and the resources that you convert to are variable. So every round, the resources you can get and the resources you can convert to change. So some rounds you'll get a lot of gold for converting jade.
Do you know what those will be at the beginning of the game? You know every round, or is it a surprise?
You do see them at the beginning of the game, and you do see what the next ones are for every round.
Does it still escalate by number of dice you place the way the market does in the first game?
Sort of. So they're all 1 die spots, but for the more valuable resources, the die has to be a 5 or a 6.
Okay.
And for the least valuable resource, which is the coffee, you can place any die there.
Is there still a stupid Neelan player power? Where
Yes.
whenever you go to the market, Neelan gets 1,000,000 resources.
No, they took out that one. They realized how stupid
How stupid it
Power, and they took it out. But there are player powers. Let me get into that while we're on it. There are player powers, but they're not nearly as crazy as they were in Marco Polo.
That's kind of
Yeah,
a shame.
they're interesting. They're interesting, but they're not anywhere in the same ballpark as how crazy the Marco Polo 1 powers are. A couple other things that are different. Movement is a much more important thing to do, because one of the things that you score at the end of the game is you still have those secret city visiting cards that you had in Marco Polo 1, but everybody will score for the number of different cities that they've hit, but not necessarily the number of cities. So cities on the map have these crests, these like seals. And so it's the number of seals that you've hit. So some cities that are next to each other have the same seal.
Oh, I see.
There's seals in Beijing.
Do you think that's as good as Poyo?
No. I think it's better.
So at the end of the game, depending on the number of seals that you've hit throughout the game, you'll score points. So the way the cards work, the way the hidden targets that you're trying to get to is the cities that are on your card, they count as 2 seals, basically. So you will get points at the end of the game for the number of different cities you've hit, and it's important to be at least somewhat in that game. But traveling is a little bit easier in this game. Instead of there being just 1 traveling spot, there are now 3. But the first one is 1 die, the second one is 2 die, and the third one, which allows the most movement, is 3 die. So if you want to travel a lot, you have to place 3 die. But in this game, you get to place 2 houses, whereas with Marco Polo, all your movement, you can only place 1 house. So movement is more flexible in this game. One more thing I should mention with movement is now there are these guilds, these guild tokens you can get. And if you get the guild tokens, they allow you to now travel these water paths that connect cities a little more efficiently. So you can try to get these guild seals and allow you to travel a little more efficiently. Also, those cards you got at the beginning of the game, those cards that will encourage you to go to different cities, if you get certain guilds, you'll get points for that too. So that's a whole new thing. This guild system is a brand new thing. And finally, there is no contract market. Contracts are still a huge part of this game, but now the way you get contracts are some cities on the board, instead of giving you a new worker placement spot, give you a contract. You can get contract from those cities. And now if you want to get more contracts, there's a contract spot on the board. And if you go there, you can get contracts from the contract cities you've already visited. So if I've gone to 2 cities that have contracts and I use that contract spot, I can now take contracts from the cities I visited. So it handles acquiring new contracts in a different way. Otherwise, it feels like the same game in a lot of ways. The differences are pretty big, but you still get that Marco Polo feeling. I was pleasantly surprised by this, maybe because I was going in with very low expectations. It is definitely a looser game. At the end, one of the players had basically traveled to almost every city, which is like unheard of in Marco Polo 1.
Well, that's the thing I was actually going to ask, is because it sounds like at least almost all of the big changes revolve around making movement more appetizing, but also easier to do. So yeah, it sounds like, does getting to your like destination cities feel like substantively easier? Because I would imagine it would be.
It does. And I will say that I think you can't play this game. I don't think there's any reason you would want to, but traveling is like vital, because if you want to get in the contract game, you have to go to contract cities or you're done. So traveling is much, much bigger in this game. Which again is part of the reason why it feels a little looser. And I never felt the incredible like tightness of Marco Polo 1 where I had a number of plans and none of them were going to pan out. I will say that at the end of this game, which was my first and only game of playing Marco Polo 2, everybody did say like, oh, if I had one more resource, oh, if I had one more thing, I could accomplish this. But it felt like we'd all accomplished quite a bit. Like we hadn't done everything we wanted, but we'd done a good amount.
Were the scores all closer together too?
2 of the player scores were close together.
Because it just seems like it just sounds a little easier overall.
Yeah, I think it is easier overall. But it's fresh. It feels like if you play Marco Polo 1 a lot and wanted to play it, but with a different spin on it,
yeah,
this would be totally satisfactory. I was, again, very pleasantly surprised by this. I still think that Marco Polo 1 is my preferred of the 2, but I would be more than happy to play this again. I was very excited after wrapping it up and would be
You
happy.
sold out, Mark.
How's that?
You've just hyped up Marco Polo for, I don't know, however many years I've talked to you. Feels like 10.
Yeah.
And the entire premise of that hype came from the differentiated player abilities that break the game. Like, that's been the hype meter.
Yes.
And you're saying they took that, they neutered it,
Yep.
and the game's still good.
Yeah, it's still a good game. It's not as good as Marco Polo 1. It's still a good game.
It's interesting because like one of the questions I was going to ask you is, does this feel necessary? But I feel like we're in such weird territory right now where almost every game gets a slightly modified sequel in a year or two, because that's where the market has shifted a little bit. But I guess, I mean, still the same question. If you have Marco Polo 1 and if you haven't played it all the way out, should you get Marco Polo 2?
No, I would say that audience, the ones who have Marco Polo 1 and haven't played it out and still are excited to play it, there's no real reason to get Marco Polo 2. It's a whole different game. It's a lot more like resource conversion. It's a lot more like, I would say, down the line Euro. Mm-hmm. It's like, Marco Polo 1 feels very, very unique to me.
Yeah.
It feels like very different. This feels like a very good Euro. with a little bit of like interesting like asymmetric powers, and the dice placement I think is still done very, very well. But it's more, I think, approachable. I think more players will play. You get more of like I ran my engine, or I like was able to do a lot of these things. You know, it's not as brutal as Marco Polo 1 is.
Did it inspire you to take your turn in our game of Marco Polo 1?
It did not. It did not.
I've been waiting for you, Mark, for 6 weeks.
I'm sure that game has expired already.
I don't think it has it. Is it? I got an alert about it like a week ago. I was like, wow, this is still going on.
I had a really good plan to take you down.
Oh, did you? Okay.
Yeah.
Mind you, Marco Polo 2, I believe, is now available on BGA, so we could roll
We could
straight
try that
into
out. Oh, really? On BGA? Okay, cool.
Yeah. And then Mark can never take his turn in that.
There you go. It's easy to teach if you know the first, and the second one is relatively simple.
Yeah.
So that is Marco Polo 2 in service of the Khan, I think.
I'll wait for the threequel.
Or the squeakquel.
Or the Zequel. Xenon reference, anyone? Disney Channel, what up?
Neelan, what have you been playing?
So, I have played Cóatl.
How sure are you of the pronunciation?
How sure am I of the pronunciation?
Yeah.
Not very.
Okay.
Can you give me the spelling on that, Neelan?
Coatl. As in Quetzalcoatl.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's his nickname.
Is Quetzal? Quetzi?
It's Cóatl.
Quaddle. Quetzalcoatl's nickname is Quaddle.
Kind of makes me want pretzels for some reason. Like a soft one, not a hard pretzel.
Do you know
Who
what
eats hard pretzel?
Do you know what it means, Neelan?
I think it just means snake. Last time I looked it up, I can't remember.
Serpent. Yeah.
Is that still snake in Spanish? Is Quaddle?
No, they changed it.
No.
Oh, well.
Vibora. That's snake. In Spanish. Vibora. Yes, it is. Because to say pink snake sword, you say Vibora Espada Rosada.
No.
Yes.
No.
What are you talking about? 100%.
He's traveling back in his mind
Look!
to 8th grade Spanish. Look.
I just Googled it.
That's real.
The snack?
No, it is.
Oh, serpiente? Okay, so what is this?
He can't.
It says community verified snake.
Ellen.
Look at this. Do you see this?
No.
You're not willing to read?
Nope.
Cóatl is designed by Etienne Dubois-Roy. I'm probably butchering all this. And Pascal Brassard.
Probably Wah. Roy is probably Wah.
Roy. It is published by Synapses Games. It is a puzzle drafting game, not unlike and in the vicinity of something like an Azul, something like a Reef. The core gimmick, if you will, of the game are that the game includes these bags of plastic pieces which you're going to be constructing these Cóatl, which are in the Aztec lore, presumably, like these feathered serpents, and you're constructing these idols of these feathered serpents. So every one of these feathered serpents is going to have a head, which you will draft from the board. It will have any number of body pieces, and then must have a tail, and then you can declare that Cóatl complete. These plastic pieces come in, I think, 5 different colors, and they're all laid out on this board at the start of the game. And one of the actions you can take on your turn is just to take some pieces from the board. So you might take a head piece from the middle there. You might take a tail piece. You might take one of the groups of 2 body pieces. As you're acquiring these pieces, you're just putting them in your little personal bank, which can go up to 8 pieces total. And then another action you could do on a future turn is to start assembling your Cóatl. You take the pieces out of your bank. You start assembling them strictly from either end. You can't add pieces to the middle later on. And the reason you're doing all of this is to acquire points based on the arrangement of colors in that Cóatl. So there are cards you will have at the start of the game, and more prophecy cards you can draft throughout the game, which will have at the bottom, okay, your Cóatl must have a yellow piece on the left and a black piece next to it on the right. And then if you do that once, you'll get 2 points. If you do that twice, you'll get 3 points. If you do that 3 times, you'll get 5 points. But if you don't use them, you're just going to get stuck with them. So there's a little bit of, do I want to take this one now if I don't know that I'm going to be able to use it down the run? So if you drop that prophecy card and choose to play it to your Cóatl, then depending on how many times you've recreated that pattern, you're going to get a certain number of points when you complete that Cóatl. Every Cóatl can have up to 4 different of these prophecy cards applied to it. And there are also these community temple cards, which are even bigger scoring bonuses. but those are in the middle of the table available to everyone. So there's a little bit of a race component there. Because if I complete my Cóatl and declare this temple card for its points, then that card goes away and no one else has access to it. On top of all that, there's an even bigger race component to this because you can only build 3 Cóatls and then the whole game ends. So once someone gets that last one, it suddenly triggers the last round, and there's a bit of a scramble to see how much you can do with what pieces you have in order to best score off of them. It's a very simple game. That's in large part all of the rules, except for the complexity of the scoring on the cards. But every turn just boils down to either taking pieces, assembling your Cóatl, or getting cards. So it's a very, very simple flow. It moves very quickly. It's got a little bit of that Azul-style drafting in the central board, where there's a little bit of a hope. I hope I'm going to get this piece. I desperately need this color. There's only one blue piece left on this board, and I desperately need it. It definitely is not as bitey as Azul, because one of the things that we all collectively love about Azul is that pivot to harshness where you get left with a dump of pieces at the end. It's a lot friendlier than that. I would certainly say this is more of a family weight game, but one that I quite enjoyed. It's puzzly in the ways that are a little bit reminiscent of Calico. You're like looking at your cards and thinking, okay, if I do this pattern and this pattern and this pattern, I could combine these in just the right arrangement to score a bunch of points off of them.
That sounds a little like Sagrada.
You know what? I've not played Sagrada, but that wouldn't surprise me because, I mean, Sagrada has the Azul comparison all the time, from what I understand. Is that right?
Yeah, but also like the placement of, if you have in this row, yellow scores in this row kind of thing. They have Sagrada out on Switch now, so you should check it out.
I should check it out. It does feel
come back and give us...
Yeah, it does feel like one I ought to have played. I think that, for what it's worth, what always held me back was the understanding that it wasn't as good as Azul, but I mean, that doesn't mean anything. I owe it to myself to play it. Like I said, I think this is the most reminiscent of Reef. I think if you're familiar with Reef, the idea that you have the cards, you're trying to replicate patterns every so often, it left a much stronger impression on me than the times I played Reef. And I think that I say toy factor a lot in this podcast, but it's through the roof on this. You have these little pieces that you're linking together to create these little chains of plastic feathered snakes. It's pretty adorable. The art on the cards is very vibrant and colorful. I like this quite a bit.
Yeah, I'm looking at pictures, and it looks very pretty and very fun to link them all together.
This is actually one of the few games I've picked up and played. I'd be quite excited to play this with all 4 of you because it's very quick, and I think you would all dig it.
Yeah, it seems really, really fun.
That is Cóatl by Synapses Games.
Before we lock Kellen away and give him $100 to rebuild his collection, a little call out here for more reviews. If you like what you hear, or even if you don't like what you hear, honestly, I don't really care if you like it or not, but I do care about the review being positive. So please review us wherever you found us. And
so you're asking people to lie?
Sure. I'm not
We
about
don't
that.
care if you like it or not, but you better give it a review.
And you can review us on Apple Podcasts or wherever you found our podcast. That would be fantastic. And you might want to leave a review like this one. Christina, take it away.
All right, so I'm going to read a review here. Let's pull it up. So it's called Best Board Game Podcast Ever. That's a good start. Do you enjoy board games? Board Game Barrage is an example of how podcasts should be done. Always entertaining. Their episode number 139. Oh.
Best one.
Their episode number 139 was their crowning achievement so far. The episode was perfect. They were firing on all cylinders. Their chemistry and group dynamic couldn't have been better. The humor and witty banter made me wish I had friends as cool as these 3 wonderful hosts. You could also tell the hosts have genuine affection for each other. Aww. If only all future BGB episodes can be as perfect as this one was. That is from username iHeartIOSGames.
From South Africa, aka Neelan wrote this review because it's garbage.
Wait, why the friction? We should be like all coming together about how great of an episode we all recorded.
Yeah.
Such a positive,
we just got
positive
all
review.
of us recorded a great episode.
Yep, giving
Mark,
the people what they want.
You agreed to bleep out any references to that. No.
I agreed at a cost, and you haven't met that cost yet.
Ooh.
6 roosters. You know I need my 6 roosters. So yes, please give us a review. It would be fantastic. You can mention episode 139.
No, you can't. Beep.
or any episode you'd want. But yeah, it really does help us out quite a bit, and that would be wonderful. Really, thanks so much, guys. Neelan, you wanted to mention a certain fowl.
Yeah, it is.
Certain spooky fowl.
Yes, a certain spooky ghost turkey is making his rounds very, very shortly. This is our version of Secret Santa. Origin of that name unknown. Genuinely have no idea. But somehow our version of Secret Santa is called Ghost Turkey and is kicking off in our Discord. If you want to take part, please head over to boardgamebarrage.com/Discord. Join the Ghost Turkey channel or just start talking to the Ghost Turkey bot. He will get you hooked up and into his list. The registration for that is going to close about a week from when this episode goes out. So get your registration in soon.
The Ghost Turkey has a list?
Yeah, he's checking it thrice.
Thrice, that's right. He does thrice. I forgot how careful he is.
Yeah, exactly. Very diligent.
And now, Kellen with a little tease for everybody out there. Kellen, tease him.
Excuse me?
Tease him. You heard what I said.
Well, they can't see the video. What do you mean to take my top off?
Patrons pay extra for that.
We are getting incredibly close to having merch for the Board Game Barrage podcast. We are going to launch with mugs and shirts. We're doing it as cheaply as we can. We see it as potential good marketing for us. So buying a shirt and then wearing it at game night or at conventions would be super helpful for the podcast. So you can look for that to be coming in the future, likely with a big discount for patrons of the Board Game Barrage podcast as well. Really excited to have found a partner that makes high quality enough shirts. I have 7 or 8 bad, not good enough shirts here because the quality bar is very high here at Board Game Barrage, which is why usually there's only 3 of us hosting.
Sorry, I wasn't paying attention. I was looking something up. What'd you say?
Nothing.
Okay.
3, 2, 1, get out of here, Kellen. Oh.
So we are on to the main event. Again, Kellen has $100 to recreate his collection, and now we're going to send Kellen away. Kellen, get out of here while we talk about what we think about what you're going to do.
All right.
This is going to be 139 all over again.
139. 139. 139.
Stop throwing.
Wait.
Those are mine. What do you take them out of my
I'm
wallet?
giving him $100.
Out of my own wallet.
Now we have 20 scattered on the floor. Here you go.
I don't want to put them in my wallet.
Sorry, I'm here for 139.
139.
139.
Just give you this for
the
the entire 5 minutes
That's right.
until he gets back.
Exactly. All right.
Yep.
So let's talk about what we think Kellen is going to put on his list. We all can agree that he's going to have innovation.
Yeah,
Definitely,
I think that's a
definitely.
given.
And I think that's a good choice.
I think
don't think there's any-
exactly. I think it would borderline be on my list. It's a great 2-player
Yeah,
recommendation.
same.
It's a solid game, and it's a Kellen favorite. My big question is if an Oink game makes it, because there's a price consideration
Yeah.
here.
Yeah.
Which Oink is
Yes.
it, and will it
Yep.
make it?
Christina.
So that was my two. Those are my 2 questions. Will Oink make it? Which Oink will it be? And which party game will he choose? Because he's definitely
Yeah.
gonna have a party game.
I think the party game is going to be Telestrations. That's my guess.
Oh, that's good.
That was kind
Yeah.
of my first thought too.
Yeah.
Which Oink game do you think it's going to be, Christina? If there's one on.
Honestly, I feel like it would be Insider, and the only reason I say that is because I can't think of another Hidden Trader game that he would prefer
Yeah.
for this type of list.
Right.
So it kind of doubles down there on being Hidden Trader, covering that and Oink.
I think that's exactly right. I think it would be the social deduction game he would want to put on the list. And it's an Oink game, so it's
Yeah.
perfect. One of my biggest questions is, does he have room on this list for a big box game?
Well, yeah, he's going to have one of the Cthulhu Wars expansions.
Just one of the expansions? Yeah, exactly. Yeah, the whole list is just 2/3 of Cthulhu Wars box.
I don't think so.
I don't think so either,
Yeah, I
'cause I
don't
think it's
think
just
so
too
either.
it's too much money, right? Like it's
Right.
Didn't he say on the last episode, I like small?
That's true.
He's
Did he?
pro small.
Pro small. Well.
Kellen's not going to take this opportunity and go big. He's
Yeah.
going to go small.
But like seeing this list without like his beloved archipelago.
Yeah, or something like it, like an El Grande or something. I feel like if we could think of one of those that's at a way lower price point,
Yeah.
maybe.
Okay. I think we've kept him
Yeah.
off long enough. Bring him back in.
All right. Kellen! I wasn't sure how to summon him.
Felt like 139 there for a while, but now we're back.
Yeah, you stuffed me into a burning closet. So you could have that little reunion.
All right, Kellen, tell us about what your thinking was when it came to how you would start a collection from scratch, strapped to a PC, connecting you to Game Nerds.
GameNerds.com.
We like it because, like all of Knizia's titles, it also ends with a Z. That's why we are pro Game Nerds.
Excuse me?
What is there to figure out on that? It's clear as day.
Okay.
Knizia, game, ends
Yeah,
with a Z.
it just must
Game
all
Nerds,
be the
ends with a Z.
smoke.
We love them both.
In my lungs. I can't think anymore. So this is an exercise that is born out of two things, right? It's what would you replace all your games with to consolidate your collection, but it's also a very strict price limit. And I think that combined together, it does make for an interesting array. You know, there is sort of the question of if I was on a desert island, which is something that we did, 100 episodes ago, what would be your 5 desert island games, which is how replayable are the games if you could only play 5? That's the entire context of, other board game podcasts like 5 Games for Doomsday. In this case, with a very strict price limit, what would you rebuy, but also, like, what is a good $100 board game collection? And so that is the criteria I used. It's a little bit of what I would buy right now, but also what I would recommend to someone in 2020. You're not going to find Glory to Rome, Black Box on this list.
Nealon, you're wrong.
Huh?
Nealon guessed that was the only thing you're going to buy.
Oh, yeah. Because you could not buy that for $100. And even fantastic games like Food Chain Magnate, right? It's $90. So you could buy Food Chain Magnate and a lollipop is your board game collection.
$10 lollipop?
Well, yeah.
Very good lollipop.
I eat the very best. It's this idea. Okay, so I'll say one game that is not on the list, and that is Azul. Azul is a fantastic game. And I think Splendor also fits into this category of they're very good. They punch above their weight for their rules depth. I love them. I love having them in my collection. They're tactile. They're fun. I think Azul is good for a good crowd. Splendor is good for a different crowd. But they're just too expensive. When you have $100 to work with, you got to get value going here. And, as Mark, you can't trade for these things, right? You have to buy them on GameNerds.com with a Z. That's GameNerds.com. So, without further ado, let us start this list. I will not tell you how many games there are on the list because that wouldn't be fun. I will start with the cheapest game on the list at $13.97. This is Codenames.
We did not guess that.
Oh, that is another, let's not be tryhards here. It's not like I'm buying a notebook, a binder paper, and playing every party game ever, or I'm buying like a deck of cards. You could play Rook, you could play Tichu, you could play Six Nymph. Like, that is absolute garbage for the purposes of this discussion. Like, at no point should we have that. And if you think that, you are a loser.
I'm scratching 1,000 index cards off my list.
Perfect. So Codenames is both a party game and a word game. I think it straddles a really good line in terms of the groups that you can play it with. We all love Codenames a whole hell of a lot, and I imagine we may even see this in your burnt down house board game collections. I think that you can play it up with people who don't like games but are nerds and are thinking. Like, there's an element of, like, you can play this more hardcore, and then you can play it more like a party game with people who just want to goof off. And I think it straddles that line really well. High value at $13.97. Codenames is the first game on my list.
That is a very good price.
I
kind of want to go buy it
only at
right now.
Game Nerds.
Exactly.
That's an excellent choice. And, the discussion we had was what would be the party game that would fit that niche.
Well, he might keep...
No. I'm not going to like.
It might still be
no. I'm not going to say what our choice was, but it's interesting to see you come up with Codenames right out of the bat.
It kind of seemed like the obvious answer, and I thought you wouldn't go there. I mean, I'm not saying it's bad. I'm just saying it was like the first thing that you might think of.
I appreciate you knowing that I'm a unique star.
I think she's saying the exact opposite.
She thought you were.
Yeah, it's actually.
Okay, well, let's move on.
All right, Cal, you got $86.03 left.
Oh, Mark's counting. Okay. Number 2, and this, my friends, is the best value in all of board gaming.
All right, I know it.
All of board gaming.
Yeah.
Coming in at $13.97, the exact same price as Codenames. The exact same price as Codenames. My number 1 board game of all time, Innovation.
What?
Well,
Let me tell you.
number 1 game of all time as of 2019.
We haven't revealed that for 2020. Innovation is absolute perfection at this price point. $14, you have a 2-player game that you can play to near infinity. The amount of combinations present in the box, the amount of cards you will never see. I had a game that I played of Innovation online this past 2 weeks ago where we played in the tens for way longer than I've ever seen. We saw multiple tens and we're like, wow, this is going to end in a different way than any game of Innovation has ever ended. And I've played it well in excess of 100 times. I love Innovation here because there are so many 2-player duelers that I do think would run out of replayability. Lost Cities, Hanamikoji, Air, Land, and Sea, Pinata. I love all of these games, but I do think that they have a shelf life where you could run out of them. Innovation does not have that ceiling, or that ceiling is much further away. In addition, unlike many of those 2-player duelers, Innovation can flex to 3 players and be fine. Innovation can flex to 4 players and be played in 2-player partnerships, and it's fun and interesting and different. So for the variety from top to bottom, for the 2-player focus, but with allowing for more, this is the perfect game to come in at this price point, $13.97, Innovation. How could this not be on all of your lists? If it's not on all of your lists, I will fight you with the North.
Yeah, this was a no-brainer, even before I knew the price point, so...
All right.
All right, you're down to $72.06.
I may have done my math wrong. I'm down to how much money?
$72.06.
Oh, okay. I'm okay now. Okay. So the next game on the list, right?
Yes.
We got to have a big experience. We got to go as big as we possibly can with the price that we have, right? And I'm not going to just have 3 games in my board game collection. Hell no. Okay, we need some variety. So we got to get 2 games. How much money do we have, Mark? We have 70 something?
206.
Yeah. Here we go. Coming in at $34.97.
Whoa! 34 how much?
97. What do you want me to dink and dunk with $10
No,
games?
You got to go big.
What do
Bring
you
it.
want? What do you want? Gonchon Clever up in here and 7 versions of that? What do you want? This is a real board game collection, sir.
That's right.
We're getting Dune for $34.97.
Boom.
Interesting.
Now, this is an interesting pick because Dune is not my favorite Dudes on a Map game. It's not my favorite negotiation game. It's not my favorite zany game. You know, we've got Cosmic Encounter, we've got Inish, we've got Cthulhu Wars, which, you know, you can't even hardly get an expansion faction for Cthulhu Wars for $100. To get Dune for $35 or less, thanks to GameNerds.com, is insanity. You have got a 6-player game of crazy negotiation, of crazy novelty, but it also fulfills that Cosmic Encounter wackiness. You've got that, who knows what's going to happen, LOL, big epic experience night. You know, you don't need Twilight Imperium for $80, $90, plus the expansion, which is another $90, when you have Dune for $34. On top of that, we're not getting Dune in 2020. It went away from us and made us cry, the movie. So what do we have? We have Dune for $34.97 from Game Nerds. That is a winner.
Boom.
I will say that's an interesting but good choice. But I do feel like it was heavily influenced by your recent existential crisis, which was fueled by Dune the movie being postponed until 2021. It's like all you can think about lately and talk about. So I just want to, just for everyone listening, as that's the disclaimer, is Kellen has been reevaluating his entire life because Dune got postponed to 2021.
I think that for this price point, this is unbeatable. I wanted to have an experience that was larger than life. The other thing that you could do that I have down here, right, is you could put Illusion, Werewords, and Twice as Clever for like $5 more than this Dune experience.
Right.
And I'm just like, we're going to dink and dunk around here, like, and play Illusion with our
That's not what we
dads.
do around here.
We play Dune!
That's right. That's right. I did not see this coming, and it's a great pick. I love it. I absolutely love it.
Same.
Yeah, definitely. I think especially at that price, I mean, that's great. That's a great
We
pick.
don't dink and dunk around here,
Yeah, they do that in the NBA. Go Lakers.
especially the dinking.
Definitely dinking.
All right, so you might be thinking, wow, how do you round out this collection with how much money do we have left, Mark?
$37.09.
$37.09.
And remember, we locked you in the room without food, so you better have some money over for some food, or you're going to die of starvation.
Well, I can't even afford a lollipop after we buy this next game. Or one banana at the BGB rate of $10. This is my only cheat. Small.
Oh, God.
This game is currently available at Game Nerds for pre-order.
That's fair.
But the game has already released. You can look at my list and you could say, Kellen, what do we love in 2020? You know, we love Euro games. You know, there's no Euro game on your list. How could I be boring and have some boring fun time with each other? And how you can do that for $34.87 with the Hansa Teutonica Big Box.
Oh, that's good.
You cannot get better value than Hansa Teutonica. For the Euro-minded friends who want to play a game that runs 1 hour, 90 minutes, Hansa Teutonica is perfect. It's perfect for me because it's a highly interactive Euro game. When I was filling the slot, it literally was, okay, I've got my 2-player card game, I've got my party game, I've got my big experience. I wanted a Euro game. And truly, if I pared down my collection to 4, it's the Euro game. So I'm looking around, it's like, well, nobody can buy Barrage anymore unless you buy it for $150 on Kickstarter from Queen Games. You know, you can't get some of the more minis-heavy Euro games that I also like. Hansa Teutonica, the big box, has multiple maps to explore. I've never played any of the other maps. And so that variety comes in. You have a Euro game that I love, in addition to being very, very interactive. If you have not ever played Hansa Teutonica, you owe it to yourself to check it out online. You should play Hansa Teutonica. It is an old Euro game that is coming back in a new edition. It is fantastic. My 4-game collection, Hansa Teutonica Big Box, Dune, Codenames, and Innovation.
Very good. That's a very, very good collection. We mentioned Telestrations as a possible game on your list.
You could just do that with paper, Mark.
Oh, come on. I am actually surprised that you chose Codenames over Telestrations. I feel like there's more replayability in Telestrations than Codenames.
No.
And I mean, from our experience, I would say most of us...
The hour in this context.
Apparently everyone here but you.
Okay.
We all love Codenames.
Yeah.
But we have played it so many times that when it comes to game night and we're choosing, it's not necessarily the first thing we reach for. I think we would also agree that when we do pull it out to play it, we just have an incredible time every time, still. But
you can reuse the words to play other games like the Crypto.
Helen. But I would say that's not the case with Telestrations. Because of how much you specifically love Telestrations, I thought that it would be on the list.
Yeah, Telestrations was on the short list. I think that Codenames straddles such a good line for me that it makes it over the pure party game that many board gamers won't. I don't play party games. We all know those board gamers.
Telestrations is $27, but you can get Upside Drawn for $17. The superior version.
But see, that's the tough choice here,
yeah,
right?
no, that's expensive. That's a lot.
Yeah, no, for sure. I think that your list is great. I think it's a pretty good representation of your tastes while being like a pretty well-rounded list. We were wondering what the Troops on the Map experience like was going to be. We thought it might be El Grande. I think that Dune is a excellent choice and a very Kellen choice, certainly.
Speaking of Kellen choices, we were debating which Oink game
Yep, that's what I was
would
going to
make
say.
it on the list.
It's so challenging.
Yeah.
Right, because it really forces you to reevaluate, and you need games to actually do double duty. Because if they're single-minded...
Insiders, double duty.
Yeah. Werewords was definitely on the short list and would have been the next one to make the cut had I not needed the banana and or lollipop. But Oink games do one thing really well for $20 or $25, right? Depending on where you buy them. And... yes, I am dismayed to not have that on there. I mean, it's not my top 5, right? Because that really is the difference, right? Cthulhu Wars, you're way outpriced. Inish, I was just like, it's just too much. Anything that's $40 or more, you're like, I'm blowing half of my budget on one thing, so it has to do more than one thing. Yeah. And so in that case, Dune, from a price point perspective, I just think gives you that event game. It gives you that cosmic encounter game. It just, it somehow just like envelops all of it. And I don't think it's the best one.
Yeah.
I don't.
Yeah.
But.
So to review, you had
Codenames, Innovation, Dune, and the big box, Hansa Teutonica.
That's a pretty good start. That's a pretty good start for $100.
Yeah.
And you're left with $2.22, which Amazon tells me you can buy a hinge pin doorstop and have 4 cents left over. So
that's perfect.
All that in a hinge pin doorstop.
Will that prevent the fire from spreading?
I think it might encourage the fire. to spread. I think that's what hinge pinch doorstops do.
That's too bad.
They're fire spreaders. So that is going to do it for our episode. As always, you can find us on all forms of social media. You can join the Ghost Turkey, which is our version of Secret Santa, at BoardGameBarrage.com/Discord in the Ghost Turkey channel. And just join our Discord in general. There's a lot of people out there who are super, super cool to talk to. There's board game chat going on 24 hours a day. So yeah, BoardGameBarrage.com/Discord. Leave us a review, again, wherever you found us. And as always, a big thank you to Heart Society for our intro and outro song, What's on Your Mind, Kid? And that'll do it. See you guys next week. Goodbye.
Why are you laughing?
We were all like being polite and waiting for. I was waiting for Neelan to go. You were waiting for me to go.
Oh, I wasn't waiting.
You went straight to the mic, so I was like, Christina's definitely about to say goodbye. I'll wait.
Well, it's because I was wondering if I wanted to like say something about like, I don't know, like ducks or so. We just talked about a lot of fowl on the show, so I just felt like it needed to be tied together, you know.
That's organic.
So that's why I paused. But yeah, I don't know. I also thought you were gonna. I don't know. Anyways, you go, Neelan.
Bye.
Bye.
So long.
Boy, did I use a cup of tea.
Okay, Neelan.
Yeah.
Do you like chai? I hate recreating. Okay, let me
That
start
was
over.
a terrible effort, Christina. I want more
Neelan,
conviction.
do you like chai?
I do like chai. I don't love it.
Okay, well,
Way to change your answer in the
What?
in the second take.
That was
your
better.
second take.
That was so good. It was a pitch perfect reproduction. I had like thought, I had deliberation.
I mean, I thought it was good. I just thought it was funny how good it was. So I have this rooibos, chai rooibos. Is that how you say it? Is rooibos?
Rooibos, yeah. So rooibos. Well, boss is actually would be correct. So rooibos.
It's like if Roy was a boss.
Exactly.
Got it. Well, I know your love for rooibos.
Yeah.
Well, but if you don't like chai, it's pretty chai-y.
I mean, but here's the thing. I like chai enough that I think that the rooibos would carry it.
yeah,
what is
It's
rooibos?
really good.
So rooibos is just like it's a bush tea. It's not.
It's
tea
not a tea,
leaves. It's not
technically.
technically a tea,
Not
I
a
guess,
tea.
because it's like. I mean, but I guess it is bush leaves. I don't know, to be honest. I don't know what
It was
qualifies
invented
anything as a tea.
By
Really,
Mormons.
it was not invented by Mormons. What are you talking about?
It's the only tea they can drink,
Well,
Neelan.
the South Africans invented it.
What?
The box of tea that I'm drinking from literally talks about the joys of South Africa.
Mormonism.
Anyways, I'll send you a
Yeah,
I'll send you a packet through mail.
Thank you.
Of tea?
Okay,
You haven't
Mark.
sent me any packages.
The question I was going to ask you, but I decided to wait for record because Kellen chastised me. Do you like or dislike the fact that you see your name out in the world a lot as a word and not your name?
Oh, I see.
You know, like sometimes I'll be reading something and it'll like catch my eye and I'm like, oh, Mark? And I'm like, oh no, it's like,
Oh,
Right.
as in
Mark
like
your
the
spot.
word mark.
yeah.
I mean, anything that gets my name out there more.
Like not that many names have that quality.
Right. It is
You
very
know?
unique.
So
That is
generic.
interesting. That
It's
is
very
interesting.
unique in that way.
No, it's unique, Kellen.
Yeah.
I
mean,
like
it's
the idea
just
that
everywhere.
anytime anyone ever says the word Mark just perks up.
That's right. Exactly.
Like on your
It
mark.
warms my heart.
Yeah, exactly. No, that's what I'm saying.
But
Can you imagine if
Pedestrian.
Callan was a regular word? What would
It was
that
a
mean?
verb.
Oh,
To Kellen.
oh,
My
you don't
head
want
was
Callan.
God, I had
Believe me,
Kellen last night.
you don't want.
Killed me.
This is not a good trio.
So, Christina, why don't you start us off with 5211?
Okay, this has nothing to do with 5211, but
Good start.
I wanted to say, because I wanted to like get a video for how to pronounce rooibos just to make sure Neelan was correct.
Right.
And the very first result says, like, you know, the one where Google writes it out, you don't even have to click into it, the Google preview thing. Literally, it shows what you said, Mark. Roy-boss.
Boom.
Yeah, if you wanted to pronounce it like some foreigner.
People have
into
asked, who's more South African, me or Neelan? And I think the question was
the
answered there.
consensus is
That's right.
Mark.
That's right.
Oh dear.
Perfect. That's exactly what I said.
I heard a bosun.
I don't know
Not
what's going
what
on
I
over there.
Well, that was the first video.
All right.
Okay. Anyway,
We
sorry.
talk about
sorry,
board
sorry.
games.
I'm
here.
sorry. Okay. Hello. Welcome to the podcast. Okay. We are here to talk about nothing else. Only this game called 5211. I'm just kidding. This is one of many games we'll talk about. But 5211 and specifically the Azul.
I grated off the flesh of my beloved.
Ah!
I wanted you to eat that in a salad.
Terrible.